Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside Space Infantry Federation. This is a game designed by Nathan Hansen and published by Lock and Load Publishing. This is not a box game, this is actually a Ziploc game, that's why you see the components already out on the table. Since there's no back of the box, I will read the back of the rulebook, which will explain to you what the game's all about. During the Second Contact War, humanity chased their enemies straight into a hornet's nest of hostile alien species. With the Human Federation centuries out of date by comparison, the race is on to defend and to fortify the 6 Federation colonies before these factions can sweep in and take it all away. If they make it to Sol, all will be lost. You'll have the best of humanity to work with, the elite space infantry, the Colonial Guard and their allies, and a host of technologies and resources to research and deploy as you see fit. You could be aggressive, welcoming the conflict to come. You could choose to take a more diplomatic approach and potentially avoid conflict with an alien faction altogether. Or maybe you can use your network of spies to stoke war between your enemies, tying up their resources so they can't focus on you. There are many viable approaches. You are opposed by the forces of the Flesh Eaters, Chthonians, mercenaries, mutants, and cybers. Each will react to your choices and actions, each capable of sending fleets and troops to besiege your colonies and wage war on Sol. Each faction has their own unique abilities to contend with and special powers to use against you. Can you hold off the alien factions long enough to fortify the Federation? Will internal political affairs and turmoil cause it to collapse from within? Can humanity keep up with the race for ever more advanced technology, or will it be relegated to a simple backwater incapable of ever competing on the galactic stage? All of that depends on you. Good luck, Commander. And you can see an example of the components, which we will take a closer look at here in a second. It is a complexity of 5 out of 10 scale, and it is 100% solitaire. It is a one-player game, 1 to 4 hours of playing time for ages 12 and up. And we start off with the rulebook. The counter sheets in bagged form because these things will fall right out. These are beautifully cut. The political board, the resource board, event board, the player aid card, and the map. So let's set up the map and take a closer look at the game. And here's a look at the map that comes with the game. The Sol system is in the center, and surrounding it are 5 different faction tracks. And yes, as you guessed it, this is a State of Siege game. Lock and Load Publishing are calling this the Line of Defense series, and it is very fitting in this instance. This is not your standard State of Siege game. This is not, hey, I'm going to sit there in the middle, I've got 5 tracks coming at me, and I'm just going to keep getting punched in the face and hold on for dear life. Nope, not at all. This is different than that. You're still dealing with that State of Siege mechanic, that constant onslaught. However, you can do offensive things. You must do offensive things in this game. To win the game, you need to settle bases on these 6 planets that surround the Sol system. And you can do that multiple ways. You can do that through kinetic combat. You can also do that through political maneuvering and even some sabotage where you use your spy networks to go in there and maybe get your enemies to fight each other. So there's multiple ways of dealing with the threats on the board that don't always have to deal with getting punched in the face constantly or maybe trying to fight back occasionally. Here, you're going to be fighting a war on multiple fronts in different ways. And I think that's really cool. If you try to go all combat, you're going to get wore out and you're going to get wore out pretty fast. So you've got to balance the different ways of handling the conflicts. Political, kinetic combat, and maybe some sabotage like I was saying. So this is a nice small 11 by 17 inch map, and you can either put it under plexi or it'll fit really good inside of a top loader, which is another alternate way of using kind of a plexi system and pretty inexpensive and reusable for maps of this size. Next, we have the politics board. At the top, you will track the status of your relations with each of the factions, either at alliance or war. Below that is the war effort. There's peace, Cold War, mobilized war, and total war for each of the factions, so you can track how that progresses, and events also may change that. Research technologies, the activation queue, and then the activation token holding box on the bottom right. And next is the resource board. This is where you're going to keep track of your research progress, resource pool, resource track, locked assets, and the unbuilt assets, as well as your stored resources. Then we have the event board, and this is where you're going to be placing your face-down event counters, so that way you have random encounters, random events throughout the game, which will affect the game in various ways. And lastly, we have the player aid card, which gives you various tables that you can reference during play. Next, we'll take a look at the counter sheets that come with the game, and I'm going to be very careful with these because these were wrapped up for a reason. These punch very easy. If you shake this counter sheet a little too hard, they're going to fall right out, so I'm being real careful. I'm just going to give you an example here. Boom, touch that, and I touched this one at the same time, and it almost came out. These punch nice and clean. These are nice thick counters. Lock and Load did a fantastic job with these. This counter sheet, and I just punched another one out, is going to give you all of the resource, technology, and fleet tracks or fleet track markers for each of the factions in the game, so you can keep track of them on the different boards. And on the second sheet, we have the political status markers as well as all of the event counters. And the thing about the event counters, if you look closely, you can see red, yellow, and green on these. And green is going to be easy, yellow is going to be medium, and red is going to be hard. So that way you can change the type of game you want to play. If you want to play an easy game, just use the green counters. If you want to use a medium game, you're going to use the yellow and red if you want to punish yourself and play the tough game. Now we'll take a look at the rules. This is a 32-page full-color rulebook. On the inside of the front cover, we have the table of contents, so you can easily reference any rules that you need. Game components explained to you on the next several pages. Tells you all the different counters, all the different boards that you'll be using during the game. Your game setup here on page 8, how to set up your political board, how to set up your activation pool, your main game board, and then the resource board. And then we get to the how to win or lose here on page 14 and the sequence of play. How to win is very simple. Like I stated before, you have to put bases on 6 planets. There are 3 ways to lose. At the end of a Federation turn, if there are 1 or more alien fleets in Sol, you're going to lose. If your Federation stability reaches 0, you lose. If every alien race has filled their technology track, then you lose. So things to keep in mind when you're playing the game. Sequence of play here starts on 14. Game system turns, all the different alien event tokens and how those are handled. Then we get to Fast Raiders, Expansion Desire, and then Phase 2, which is your advance your resource track. And then Phase 3 is the player actions and all the player actions that are available to you. Research, sabotage technology, remember diplomacy, things I was talking about before, it's not all kinetic. You can do some sabotage things to the enemy. You can also do diplomacy. So that's the balance you've got to do in this game, which I really think is pretty cool. Then you have Warp, the war opportunity, war effort, like we were looking at before with the political track, how that's handled. Combat, how to apply hits, how to lose battles, and the technology for the Federation, warp gates, the mil-spec ops engines, the real-time translator, data disruptor toolkit, missile swarms, warp bubbles, visual distortion field, patrol routes, and then alien tech, all the different types of alien tech that's available to the different alien factions, and then the Dune Fleet here on page 32, and we are at the back of the rule book. And that is a look at everything you get inside of Space Infantry Federation. This is a game designed by Nathan Hansen and published by Lock and Load Publishing. I really was looking forward to seeing this final production copy because I got a personal connection to this game. I remember Sol was the original game that was the design was that Nathan had. And I reached out to him, I was talking about the game, and I realized this game actually could work in the Space Infantry series with Lock and Load. So I talked to him about possibly retheming the game, and I definitely could see how easily it could be done. So that's what was done. I talked to David Heath, he was on board with it, him and Nathan hooked up, and they signed the game. And it is now part of the Space Infantry universe. And it's fantastic that it is because this is a really neat game. It's not your standard State of Siege game where you just stand there, get punched in the teeth. There's back and forth. It's almost got kind of a 4X-ish type of feel to it because you're doing diplomacy, you're expanding out by taking those planets and getting bases on them. You're doing research and advancing on your technologies. So there's a lot going on here. This is, like I said, not your standard State of Siege game. So if you like to be able to do more in your State of Siege games and you want more decision points and you want more action than you normally get, you don't want to just feel like you're against the ropes all the time, this is definitely your game you're going to want to check out. If you're a fan of the Space Infantry universe, you're going to love this because it's firmly wrapped in the Space Infantry universe and it helps build out the story further for the Space Infantry universe. So I'm really looking forward to getting this one on the table and playing the final game because this is going to be a lot of fun to play. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this one. You have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.